We're about to dive into this incredible letter, written almost 2,000 years ago to a group of people in the ancient city of Smyrna. And let me tell you, it's a powerful message about facing insane struggles, having unbelievable wealth, and making a life or death choice between two very different crowns.
So think about this for a second. Have you ever had a performance review at work or school where there was zero negative feedback? Like 100% positive? It's basically impossible, right? Well, we're about to meet a group that got exactly that. A perfect review under some of the most intense circumstances you can possibly imagine.
All right, so in the book of Revelation, there are these letters sent to 7 early Christian churches. 5 of them got a mix of, hey, you're doing this great, but you need to fix this. But the church in Smyrna? No. They got pure, unadulterated praise, not a single thing to correct. So the question is, what were they doing so right?
To figure that out, we've got to look at the core message that was sent to them. And right out of the gate, it starts with this powerful statement that honestly sounds like a complete contradiction. The letter literally says, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich. Now hold on. How is that even possible? How can a group of people who are suffering, who are being persecuted and are dirt poor, be considered rich? That's the central mystery we're going to unravel right now.
And this breaks that paradox down perfectly. I mean, look at the left column. Their outward reality was brutal. They were being persecuted, they were facing extreme financial hardship, and their neighbors were slandering them. But the letter just completely reframes their whole situation. It points to a spiritual reality where they were unbelievably wealthy. They had riches in Christ, righteousness, and this promise of an eternal inheritance. 2 totally different perspectives on the same situation.
But to really get why this message hit so hard for them, you have to understand the city of Smyrna itself. It had this really unique history that made the introduction to this letter resonate in a way that really no other city could fully appreciate.
The one sending the message identifies himself as the first and the last who died and came to life. Now, for the people of Smyrna, this wasn't just some abstract theological idea, it was literally the story of their own city. And this timeline just shows you how incredible that connection is. Smyrna was conquered way back around 600 BC and just completely destroyed. For 300 years, it was basically a dead city, nothing but a pile of ruins. But then, it was rebuilt, resurrected, you could say, into this beautiful, flourishing Roman city. So can you imagine getting a message from someone who says he died and came to life? Wow, they would have understood that on a deeply personal level. So all of this history, this context, it builds to this central conflict for the Christians living in Smyrna. And their whole struggle was symbolized by a critical choice they had to make between 2 very, very different crowns.
Just try to imagine the pressure they were under. I mean, it was immense. To be a good Roman citizen, you had to participate in emperor worship. We're talking about literally burning incense and declaring that Caesar is a god. At the same time, the Christians were losing the legal protections they once had as a sect of Judaism. You combine that with being kicked out of trade guilds for not worshiping their gods, well, that leads directly to job loss and the exact poverty that the letter talks about.
Now, the letter uses this really intense phrase, a synagogue of Satan. It's important to note, this wasn't a blanket condemnation of all Jewish people at all. The source material is clear that this was referring specifically to some local groups who were actively slandering the Christians and pushing them out from under the legal umbrella of Judaism, which basically left them totally exposed to Roman persecution.
So here it is. This is the choice. The city of Smyrna was famous for its Acropolis, a ring of beautiful buildings on a hill that looked like a crown. People called it the crown of Smyrna, and it symbolized loyalty to Rome. And that crown, it offered you worldly status, safety, but it was temporary. The alternative was the crown of life, an eternal reward promised by Jesus for being faithful to him. They could have one, but there was no way they could have both.
And look, this letter does not sugarcoat what's coming. It warns them about 10 days of tribulation. Now, in the symbolic language of the book of Revelation, the number 10 often signifies completeness. So this was a warning that a severe, but, and this is key, an ultimately limited and finite period of suffering was just around the corner.
And all of this, the warning and the struggle, it all leads to the final, incredibly powerful promise that's offered to those who just hold on and remain faithful through this intense but temporary trial. This is the ultimate payoff for choosing the right crown. Okay, but to really get why the reward is so huge, you first have to understand the consequence of choosing the wrong crown.
The Bible calls this the second death, which is a reference to the ultimate spiritual consequence, a final, eternal separation from God.
And here it is. This is the resolution to their impossible choice. The promise wasn't that they wouldn't suffer. It wasn't that they wouldn't face physical death. Many of them would. The promise was that if they conquered, if they remained faithful to the end, they would be completely and totally safe from that ultimate consequence, the second death. Their loyalty would secure their eternity.
You know, the story of the church in Smyrna is this powerful piece of history, but it really leaves us with a timeless question, one that's just as relevant today. What is the price of our loyalty, and where does our ultimate allegiance truly lie?